But anyway, hey, welcome to the A Paratrooper and a Yogi Walk into a Bar podcast. And there he is, fresh from the brink to the bar. Andrew Fox, co-host of the new Brink podcast with Jake Wallace-Simons. And that's Mr. Andrew Fox here on Substack and X.
You even got Jake's name right. I'm so impressed.
Well, is there something weird about it?
No, you were like Jack. You were like Jack,
yeah,
Jacob.
I keep calling him Jack. Oh, and before we start, can I just say, Shana Tova, may we please God see the return of all 48 hostages and a return to peace. There is no greater prayer in the world today.
Seconded. And the inimitable co-host of this marvelous podcast sat here is, of course, Shana Meyerson, who is the host of the Yoga of War podcast. And we've now both got like a panoply of podcasts. All we do is just jump from podcast to podcast, just podcasting endlessly. But this week, obviously, we're talking about the biggest news in the world, which is that the Indianapolis Colts are 3-0. Nobody saw it coming. Daniel Jones is playing like prime Tom Brady. This weekend, the Colts dominated the Tennessee Titans 40-22. And obviously, that's what we're going to be talking about for the next hour.
Definitely have to admit, Andrew, that I did not see that coming. Oh, someone's saying they can't see me. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Oh, that's so weird.
I'm not getting any messages at the bottom of the screen though.
You don't see it says I cannot see the Yogi?
No.
Can other people see the Yogi? Just out of curiosity before we talk, because who wants to have this conversation without my beautiful face? Oh, we see you. Okay, so beyond the Colts, which I have about one sentence, which is I already stated. I didn't see that coming. That's the end of that discussion, because that's 100% of what I know about the Colts, except for that I used to have a kid I worked with who was a big Colts fan, which was weird because I live in Los Angeles. So I could add that to the conversation.
Oh, we've got the Rams next week, so that, see how that goes. But did anything else happen yesterday in the news?
I'm thinking, I don't know. Besides the Colts, maybe we could just talk about like the United Nations. I know it's weird, but like, does that work for you this week?
Well, we could do. We could talk about Israel.
Okay. Because I know we all talk about Israel, especially we talk about Israel a lot. And I just want to say that we have this buzzword or phrase, right? That right now the UN recognizing a state of Palestine, which cannot be said without air quotes or real quotes if it happens to be in writing, has become this catchphrase. And I think that it's not just that we are rewarding terror. Okay, we have to keep saying that because it's true, but I feel like sometimes we get wrapped up in the rhetoric and it becomes very theoretical, because for me, like, yes, this is a reward for terror, but my mind keeps going back to 10/7 and the actual atrocities that occurred, and in my mind is tying myself up in knots, just not just in frustration, but just literally trying to figure out like how the hell we got here. I mean, we all saw the videos. I myself, and I didn't see the long movie, which I know you saw, I saw two men being beheaded. Two men, one in a kitchen, one by the street.
And by the way, with a hoe.
Yep,
with a hoe.
The
Unbelievable.
hoe. But also the Muslim man who was pulled out of his car and killed at the side of the road for being Muslim and daring to be Israeli. And by the way, the web has been whitewashed of this. There is no evidence, no proof anywhere other than testimony and, of course, Israeli archives. It's unspeakable. But here we are speaking about it. And I get afraid when sometimes it becomes like just sort of Not whitewash from the people who support it, but sort of like, again, just buzzwords and catchphrases. We have to remember these were 1,200 lives, these were 1,200 humans. And I also want to mention that Hamas has never once spoken about a two-state solution. And in fact, even since 10/7, they've never even spoken about wanting a state. This was never about a state. So I'm going to stop for a second because otherwise I could go on forever. But I just want to say that if you dare to connect the dots here, it makes this jagged shape that is very reminiscent of a swastika.
Well, powerful, powerful imagery. But look, we're in a very, very strange place. And this is the culmination of a very clever 2-year plan. This is not coincidence. It's not just because people are appalled by the war in Gaza. It's not at all. This is systematic 2 years worth of propaganda designed to manipulate people. Now, there's all kinds of factors that have played into this, and I've been trying to write something about it all day, but it's so complex that I'm still kind of working it through in my head. But it starts with the 7th of October filming. It starts with Hamas taking their records of what they did and broadcasting it to the world. And it goes from there to the media campaign that they had set up, good to go. Look, there's a reason all these, and again, air quotes, journalists followed up the Nukba troops into Israel. Nukba is Hamas's special forces unit who spearheaded 7th of October. But they had journalists embedded with them. We now know the extent to which Hamas had a worked up media campaign. They've got twice the number of kind of media operatives as the equivalent Israeli unit. That's how embedded media is into everything they do as a military outfit. So we know they had this campaign good to go. They know they had Al Jazeera pumped and primed. We have a fair suspicion, we can't prove it, but I think it's on the balance of probabilities at least true that there were campus protests and other protests primed and ready to go in the West. And this thing exploded off the back of it. And Israel was so caught on the back foot by this media campaign that I think they gave up before they even started. Israel's not really tried to fight this. I think there was an assumption perhaps that the horrors of 7th of October would keep the world's sympathy, but then Israel didn't show the world. I think they just assumed people would see it. But I speak to friends, and to this day they don't understand how bad 7th of October was. And only a select handful of people have seen the sexual assault evidence, and I only got to see it because I was with a high-level military group of brigadiers and generals from all around NATO.
Yep.
And I was the rapporteur as a Bakshi lowly major. But hardly anyone's seen that, and yet, and that allows that deniability. So straight away, you've got this campaign not only to downplay 7th of October and hide it from the eyes of the world, but also a propaganda campaign to change what Israel's doing in response and turn it into a genocide. That narrative taking over. But you've then also got the Qatari money flowing into universities, flowing into media outlets, flowing into our politicians, flowing into think tanks.
Yeah.
That are then able to harness all of this stuff and turn it into what we're seeing today, which is an actual policy outcome designed to isolate and harm the state of Israel. It's the culmination of 2 years of very clever planning.
Before we go on from here, I just want to make two historical notes to what you just said. The first is, Andrew, that we have to understand the Israeli mentality, right? If we go all the way back to Ben Gurion, and in the information age, this doesn't fly anymore. But the whole concept with Ben Gurion was we don't have to prove to the world that we're doing right. We just have to do right. They're not going to like us no matter what. And I have written about this actually for many, many years, that Israel has sort of taken this concept of we don't have to defend ourselves. We just happen to be doing the right thing. But in the information age, we do. But the other thing is, you're talking about a 2-year campaign, and that's absolutely true that the campaign was in place on October 6th, ready to go on the morning of October 7th. However, this is not a 2-year campaign. This is the Palestine
It's a
194.
60-year campaign.
Palestine, well, actually, formally in 2005, Abbas started the Palestine 194 campaign to make Palestine, I gotta remember the air quotes, Palestine, um, the 194th state. So we have to always acknowledge that the strategies of radical Islam, we think in the West in terms of here, now, right? But they're thinking literally in terms of decades and even centuries in their plans. They are nothing if not patient. Oh, and they're also master propagandists. Okay, they're patient and they're master propagandists.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to 1964, if we're being honest. This is where the seeds of this got sown, not only in the hearts of what became Palestinians, because they weren't, before that, Golda Meir, that quote gets thrown around all the time where she's like, I'm a Palestinian. Like, that's because she was talking about something completely different to Palestine as it's understood today. And Arafat was KGB trained. They were, and Russia today remain masters at psychological warfare, masters at manipulating the West. And the reason that the left globally are so sympathetic to the concept of Palestine is because they have been the target of focused information operations for 60 plus years now. The Soviet Union was able to easily target its fellow travelers. Palestine was a cipher in the Cold War designed to give a counterbalance to what was perceived as American dominance in the Middle East, with Israel as the kind of fulcrum of that. And Palestine was designed to kind of unbalance that American power base in the Middle East. We're still feeling the echoes of the Cold War even through this. But there's a reason that Canada, Australia, and the UK all have left-wing governments, all now very susceptible. So there's so many factors. Some are chance, 3 left-wing parties getting elected, pure coincidence, but it created a perfect storm. So some chance, some design, but it's the perfect time for the Palestinians now, in Qatari and Iranian and Russian and Chinese efforts to take advantage of it and create this moment in time.
I want to interject that in a quote that you just said, which is Palestine as it's understood today, because quite frankly, Palestine is not understood today. Nobody cares to understand it. Nobody wants to understand it. They are drunk on lies and propaganda. But I also want to say one thing, Andrew, and this is super incredibly important. This is why I say you got to use air quotes when you say Palestine, is that this is a war of words. We know this. But even the use of the word Palestine, 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 as if it's a state, it created a de facto state because people are using it as if it's a state. You can't say Palestine if it's just if it's just Narnia. So every time somebody says the word Palestine without air quotes, you are literally reinforcing this idea that it is a legitimate state. And so we have to understand the power of words and how insidious this campaign really is. This whole thing is to circumvent the Oslo Accords and circumvent Resolution 242 so that they don't have to negotiate with Israel. They don't have to compromise. If they can create a state by just saying we're a state, and they could get everyone in the world to say Palestine, 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 they have a state in theory, if nothing else. So for me, it's always Palestinian territories, or sometimes PA, Palestinian Authority.
Is it like saying Beetlejuice 3 times? Beetlejuice,
I don't know.
Beetlejuice, and just appears.
Palestine.
No, I'm a 47-year-old British man. I shall not be using air quotes. Thank you.
Well, I didn't know what would happen if you said it 3 times, but apparently nothing, because I said it 3 times. But it could wind up all over the internet saying,
"Yeah, say
it
3 times, and Yasser Arafat just appears in the mirror."
Okay, that would be creepy.
But I think the bigger question here for us tonight, I think we all know it's shite. We all know it's stupid. We all know it's probably killed the hostages. We all know it's taken us further away from peace in the Middle East. We all know this is boneheaded idiocy from these countries. I don't think we need to repeat it. But what we do need to discuss is what happens next. I think that's an important thing to try and work our way through. Can you hear my doorbell go?
Is that your doorbell? I thought it was your phone. Yes.
No, that's my dog's losing their shit.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so what happens? What happens next? Is the really big question, and I can see a number of options. First of all, what might happen next is nothing at all. It might just be the status quo continues. This is symbolic. Abu Mazen has his moment in the sun. As a Holocaust denying anti-Semite, he gets to go to number 10 Downing Street and shake hands with the empty wetsuit that is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the sigh in human form that is Keir Starmer. He gets his moment, but it might be that nothing else happens, in which case, fine. I think I can see an angle where Israel overreacts. I can see noises being made towards Judea-Samaria annexation without anything being followed through, because it gives a bargaining chip at the table when it comes to negotiations. The threat alone is enough. It could be that they go for it, go banzai, and just decide that let's make a Palestinian state completely impossible. Let's just annex the damn thing. There you go, done. No Palestinian state for you. Unfucking lucky. They could take that option. If they do, I could see sanctions coming in hard, but I think the American piece will save them for now. The bigger question is what happens in 3-4 years' time when there's a presidential election and a Democrat gets elected whose party are 6% in favor of Israel at the moment, which is bad juju. So there's lots of ways this could bridge and split off here. Which one do you think is most likely?
So first of all, I agree that the next Democratic president is probably going to recognize the state, but I want to push back on your characterization of occupation as overreaction. I understand you and I am definitely way to the right of you when it comes to like all things Israel. I get that. But here's the thing. Annexation to preempt statehood is no less legitimate than unilaterally granting statehood. It's like in polite company, polite in air quotes, if somebody says something about Israel that's negative on the west side of Los Angeles, where I live, it is not appropriate to push back and defend Israel. So there's this. What is that?
Have you not seen Ali G?
No. Oh, I did a long time ago.
West Side.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yes, I'm on the west side. Oh, I can't even forget it. Even as a yogi, I can't like what. But it's become verboten to defend in like if somebody else says something that is anti-Israel, it's your job to just put up and shut up. And there's this illegitimacy to stating your side. And by the way, my side, your side, our side happens to be the side that is against terror. Let's put that on the table. But it's not fair to say that Israel trying to preempt a unilaterally declared Palestinian state is any less legitimate than the declaration itself. But
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, look, no, you're right. It's all nonsense. But the difference is that declaring Palestine a state has no actual practical impact, whereas large numbers of settlements in the West Bank. Well, say again, sorry.
Until we have a Democrat in office, which could be as soon as 3 years.
Yeah, and again, it's problematic. I'm not in favor necessarily, but I'm not hugely opposed. I can see Israel's case at this point. I think Israel's been forced into that corner where they've got very few options on the table. And I'd like to see a peaceful settlement. I don't think that annexation leads to peace particularly. But I can see the point, quite frankly. I couldn't until Sunday afternoon. I think it would have been a really bad move prior to Sunday afternoon. After this, all bets are off, frankly. If you back Israel into a corner, Israel's going to react, and especially while they have that 3-year window where they know they can get away with it, or they can
Yep.
do pretty much what they want, and the US will veto anything in the Security Council.
Yep.
Trump's not going to tell them to stop. So, like, now's your window, and
Yep.
they've been forced into that position by these utter clowns in the West who don't
Exactly.
understand the Middle East and seem to think they have a right still to draw lines on a map, and then call it whatever they want.
But they're not even drawing
Nonsense.
lines. Ask anyone where the borders are, and nobody knows. There is
Oh no,
nothing.
the British have. Oh, the British Foreign Office have. They've released a map. They've released a map of
Oh,
Palestine brackets West Bank, Palestine brackets Gaza Strip,
oh,
and
did
it's the
they?
1967 borders. And every they've given every major site in Judaism to the new state of Palestine as well. So that's
Yeah.
definitely going to stand the test of time. Great
Including,
work.
yeah, including the Western Wall. Um,
Kotel, all of it, all of it. Yeah,
yeah.
it's all Palestinian.
So, so everybody knows, of course, at least with Trump in the White House, U.S. is going to veto this, right? Of course, in the Security Council. So
Hmm.
we know it's purely performative. So why even do it? So that's the other question. It's like, I know how you feel about Trump. I think that, though, you could correct me. I think you think a little more highly than Trump than Starmer. Is that accurate, or are they just like on par, or is Starmer a little?
Fucking hell, that's a tough question.
I
It's
asked.
like asking. It's like asking if you'd prefer to have AIDS or cancer. I mean, how do you choose? Both utterly horrifying.
Okay,
Um,
so I I just want to say that watching the two of them, like, you say what you want about Trump, but when they were both standing
oh, I
next
do.
to each other, I know. And Starmer literally stood next to Trump, who's like 10/7 was a genocide, and Starmer's like, Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. I mean, it was such an unspeakable disgrace. It was weird to watch. He looked like an infant, like who had no concept of reality, and he looked like a total turd next to what I know you think is a turd of a POTUS. But I hope everybody knows I have different views of Trump. Not as a human, not a huge fan of him as a human, but I'm a pretty big fan of him as a president right now.
But where we're going to go with that? What was I saying?
I don't know, but let me add something else British.
Yeah,
Did
go
you
for it. Go for it.
did you hear Lammy's like baffling comment about like the two-state solution being like significantly far away? That was such a weird thing. Why would you recognize a Palestinian state if a two-state solution is far away? Does that mean there is no Israel, or does that mean there is no Palestine? Because you could if you are recognizing both states, that is two states. How could he say that two states are far off? And I also want to add, Mr. Britain yourself, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that according to the Telegraph, 9 out of 10 Brits oppose recognizing the Palestine right now without conditions. However, as much as I love the statistic, I learned one thing and exactly one thing in college, and that was stats lie. So don't believe the statistics. You don't know where they came from or who
It was
the
a pretty solid polling company actually. They're
what
one of the
they
better ones. Yeah, they're one of the better ones. That's quite reliable.
okay.
And look, and I think this also speaks to a point I've made several times in media interviews. I don't know if I've made it with you before, but it's it's that the silent majority is actually needs to speak the hell up at this point
Yeah.
because I've been long. People ask me like, what's your plan for messaging? I'm like, look, ignore the pro-Israel crowd. They're pro-Israel. They're not going to change their minds. Ignore the keffiyeh wearing, screeching blue haired dickheads. They're not going to change their mind either. You're not going to bring them round to being committed Zionists at this point. But there is then the 80% of people, if not more, in the West who don't give a shit about the Middle East. Like they've got mortgages to pay and jobs to go to and kids to get to school and evening dinners to make. They haven't got time to sit there worrying about, you know, checkpoints in the West Bank or, you know, another suicide bombing in the Middle East, even if it is in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. They just don't care. It's another war in the Middle East. We've seen loads of those. It's boring. Like, most people don't give a shit. So they're the ones that you need to focus your messaging on. They don't need to go super pro-Zionist.
Mm.
They don't need to be Bibi's biggest fans. They don't need to, wave, wave the Israeli flag. But if you can just lean them towards you, that ought to be quite impactful. And the other thing is, of course, is that Labour know they're not going to win or lose the election with these people over the Middle East issue. But the loons, the radicalized Islamic propaganda victims, those Muslims who've been fully radicalized by this conflict because they've been bombarded with genocide propaganda, and also, let's be honest, the Yahud killing their fellow Muslim brothers, they are going to vote on this. And that's why Starmer's gone, cool, doesn't matter. These people don't give a shit about Israel. This will be forgotten in 2 weeks. Those guys there, I might lose MPs if I don't bring them back from where they are. And that's the electoral calculus of this. It's got nothing to do with the Middle East and everything to do with the hideous Islamic far left alliance that is corrupting the Labour Party.
Well, I do want to say that when it comes to votes, I feel like the Tommy Robinson rally sort of sent a message. But where are those people when they're not hiding in a big anonymous group? Again, the silent majority can change this narrative so quickly. Of course, we're up against bot farms. I love that post you made with the this is who's commenting.
That did numbers. That did serious numbers.
Yeah, yeah. But honestly, like, if all these, whatever, million people who showed up just for Tommy Robinson, plus the people in America, plus the people across the world, plus I just saw a study this morning. It says 71% of French. Okay, it's not 90%, but it's still a big majority. Where are these people? Where are their voices? But Andrew, here's my biggest worry, quite honestly. And you're in military, so I hope that you could tell me that I'm an idiot for. Well, I mean, you don't have to use those words. Be kind, because
Can I?
I do want to say first of all that like I don't know if this whole performance is like an anti-Semitic snub, terrorist appeasement, or a bit of both. But here's what worries me: who's to say that with all their new BFFs, that the Western Europe, Starmer, and whoever the hell else, won't start arming this new Palestinian state at the same time as they're embargoing Israel and skip arm in arm with the terrorists into the sunset? Are they absolutely committed to demilitarization? Because the truth is, right now, zero of the conditions that they've said are, absolute have been met. So why should we believe that if it gets to a breaking point, or if the voter base reach critical mass, that they won't start arming and giving defenses to Hamas, or listen, call it what it is. It's going to wind up being Hamas.
I don't think so. I can't see it. If nothing else, it would shatter NATO into 1,000 pieces, even worse than it already is shattered. Like the Americans would, yeah, that wouldn't go. The bigger worry, I think, is Turkey and Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood kind of leaning countries. And I know Egypt's government are currently super anti-Muslim Brotherhood, but there's still an influence there. Turkey are the worry for me. People are flapping about Egyptian troops at the Israeli border. I don't see it. But Turkey are a problem, frankly, and they're and also they're good enough to give the IDF a proper fight too. That they could really. Iran's a joke. They couldn't touch them, but if it goes off with Turkey, oh goodness me, that is not something you want to see.
Did you see the joint Turkish Egyptian naval exercise that they just did and surrounded Israel? I mean, this is no joke, but the other thing to keep in mind is there's that weird thing called a peace treaty that Israel has actually had with Egypt in the last, 50 or so years. Should Egypt decide to go to war with Israel and break that treaty, that's going to have huge ramifications, because not only just for the Middle East, but it means that they're going to lose the billions of dollars a year that they get from America. Who's going to fill that void? The axis of evil, whether it's China, Russia,
China.
Iran. So there's a lot hanging in this Egyptian balance, though Turkey, of course, particularly with their NATO membership, which needs to be revoked. There needs to be a mechanism for revoking membership, period, and replace with Israel. Um, but they are both a danger in the fact that they are now teaming up. The best part, I'm sorry, funny, not funny, is that they called the exercise like the Friendship Brigade or something. Like it literally had the word friendship in it, which was just classic. I guess it means friendship between Egypt and Turkey, but it was definitely a very specific aggression against Israel. Weird.
Yeah, and I've been saying for months now that Israel's international isolation is a problem, and the strategic ramifications of keeping going in Gaza far outweigh any threat that Hamas poses to Israel now. I think this international piece has long overtaken Hamas as the biggest threat to Israel. And look, it's happened before. The Arabs have ganged up and gone for it. There's nothing to say the Turkish and another won't go for it as well if this isolation continues. And that's the real problem here. They're even having a meeting in UEFA tomorrow to talk about kicking Maccabi Tel Aviv out of the European Cup, the soccer cup. They're in the UEFA League, I think. They're actually tied against my team, Aston Villa.
Oh, so
We
you're
should
like hoping they get kicked out.
No, actually, I'm quite the opposite. I mean, although it's going to be a hideous night bringing an Israeli team to the UK, especially into a heavily Muslim constituency as Birmingham is. There's a recipe for all sorts of appalling awfulness to happen. So, but again, that's part of the isolation as well, to make Israelis afraid to go abroad. And and this is developing steam. It's not reached its high water mark yet. This is still developing momentum, and it's only going to get worse.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
because the Gaza war has gone on for a year longer than it should have done, in my opinion. This is strategy. This isn't tactics. Taking Hamas apart, blah, 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 that's all tactics. Like, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And Israel's in a really dark place right now. I'm genuinely concerned.
I know you are, and I know you have been, and I know we are as far apart on this one topic. We agree on everything, including that we both want the same end. We just see a different means. But Andrew, here's a problem, and I just wrote about this on my Substack, which was the delegitimization of delegitimization. Um, if you're using the delegitimization and isolation argument as the reason why Israel needs to give up, then you are saying that they should give up because the propaganda war won. The delegitimization is not
It has. It's
legitimate.
absolutely won. It's
But
absolutely
okay,
shattered Israel on the international stage.
agreed. But Israel cannot lie down and die because they've been undermined on the battlefield by the
That's not,
propaganda.
no, this is John Spencer bullshit. It's not binary.
This is Shana bullshit.
It's not a binary option. Like, there are other ways to isolate Hamas, to remove them from power without bombing the shit out of them. And that's what Israel hasn't done. That's been the key flaw. And if they were going to push on beyond killing Sinwar, say, like, you have to be clever. You have to, when it comes to winkling out an insurgency, you can't do it by firepower alone. It's just not possible. And they haven't brought in any of the other measures that would facilitate the removal of Hamas. They could have massively accelerated the clan insurrection. I mean, they're not good people, and they're not going to be a long-term peace partner. But if getting rid of Hamas is your goal, then anything else will do. Like, because you ain't going to get a Gaza Strip administration that's suddenly fully pro-Israel. That's just not an option. You have other options on the table other than military force here, and Israel hasn't pulled any of those levers. And, they could have continued with a very precise campaign after Sinwar, combined with leveraging aid and reconstruction, combined with empowering the clans. There's so many other ways of doing this. It's not a matter of rolling over and dying. It's a matter of trying to find a way to offset the fact you're about to be a pariah facing enormous South Africa era apartheid sanctions, where nobody will play sport with you, nobody will let you into competitions, you're kicked out of the Olympics, you can't travel abroad without being arrested for war crimes if you've ever served in the IDF, where your trade and your economy is taking a massive destructive smash. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. There are other ways to prosecute an enemy like Hamas. So that's the point I'm making.
I understand that, Andrew, but what you have to understand is, or you don't have to understand it. This isn't John Spencer bullshit. This is Shana Meyerson bullshit. So you could just put this on me. I own this completely. But understanding that delegitimization was always the goal of this whole war from the start means you have to understand the through line. The delegitimization of Israel and the Jewish people is not going to end with this war. I promise. We saw that during the ceasefire, that even when there was a ceasefire, the anti-Israel rhetoric, the anti-Jewish rhetoric ratcheted up. This is the goal. Take my word for it now. I never heard John Spencer say this. This is my own belief that from day one, this was always about delegitimization. And even if Israel just lies down right now, nobody is going to suddenly start loving them. I promise the Eurovision is still going to try to get them kicked out. The soccer, the football is still going to try to get them kicked out. And this is not, at this point, either you kick Hamas's ass and remain illegitimate, or you don't kick their ass and remain illegitimate. This is the world that has been forced upon them, and I don't see an easy exit.
So you've got a nihilistic outlook on that, whereas I think you could have dialed down. It's like, look, if you're playing chess, no, what's a better sporting analogy? Let's go back to American football. If you're playing American football and your opponent is doing nothing but running the ball, you're not going to throw your efforts into trying to stop the pass. You're going to throw your efforts into stopping the run. And in this instance, the run is that delegitimization campaign. And yet Israel's defense has been to, spread out as much as possible and try and intercept the pass when the pass isn't coming. Like, why not tailor your tactics to what your enemy's doing? You look at what your enemy's doing and you tailor your tactics accordingly, because otherwise your case is that actually it doesn't matter if you win or not. Even if you win, you've lost, is what you're saying. Okay. There's literally no win on the table in the in the Shana Meyerson Israel-Gaza Super Bowl.
I'm laughing because football analogies are completely lost on me. You lost me at running. I don't know what the heck you just said, but okay.
So in American football, you can either throw it or run it.
I know. No, I know that. I know that. But then you just kept running with it. And I'm like, I can't even tackle this guy. I have no idea what he's talking about, but I'm sure you do. Andrew, from everything that I've heard, Hamas is scared now, and they're not just scared, they're running scared. Some of them are trying to sneak out of Gaza City. Most of them have gone underground. They're going to try to wait out this war. Even the fact that they're suddenly, again, threatening to, to disappear. They didn't say kill, but disappear all of the hostages. The pressure is on. They are changing their tune. And I do believe that if their only goal is survival, then they have to survive to achieve that goal. And I do believe that there's a point where military pressure is going to accomplish that. I hate.
Okay, now what about the administrators? What about the all the people who are there, ancillary kind of governance personnel? What about all the Palestinians who support them? Hamas is an idea that is way bigger than just Hamas militants. And you can kill all the militants and go, yay, we win, but you haven't won. You haven't dealt with the bigger political idea that sits within the hearts of these people who support Hamas. And all you need for that to work is for a significant mass of people to believe in that idea. And they do. Every poll coming out of there, like even support for Hamas is still at 43% in Gaza. Never mind the 80% in the West Bank. Like you cannot kill your way out of that.
But
And by trying to, you are isolating Israel worse than ever before in history. But it
Andrew,
just doesn't make strategic sense. It's not a strategy. It's just killing people.
the in war, people get killed.
Yes, but for a
I know
purpose, for a
I don't think
political
you can be
purpose.
schooled on war. So
War
let's
is
listen to
war is
you.
the war is the continuation of politics with the mixture of other means.
Yeah,
Clausewitz. Like, where's the politics here? There isn't one. Just killing all
but
the bad guys is not a political end state.
okay. There's never been a country that's had to fight a propaganda war like this, and it's not fair because it's the propaganda war itself that's undermining even you who are a staunch supporter. I know where your heart is, but at the same time, you are falling prey to the same delegitimization campaign, which, by the way, Donald Trump isn't.
How am
Yeah,
I falling prey? No, I'm not. I'm
yeah.
coming at it with clean military
But
analysis. This is
because
this is any war studies lecturer in the world would recognise what I'm saying as pure Clausewitzian theory. There's no propaganda here. This is just facts.
you're not
Like that's how
propaganda.
war works.
It's not that you have propaganda. It's that the propaganda delegitimization is working, and the political football cannot be passed. Is that an analogy? I don't even know if that makes any sense.
It is,
But
and I agree the propaganda is working. It is working incredibly
okay,
well
but we
because
can't
that was their plan.
lie down and die because of it. It's only going to continue.
Like I said, you don't have to lay down and die. There's other ways to win this war other than just bombing everyone.
But Hamas is not negotiating. They haven't negotiated. They're not going to give back the hostages under
So
any
you
circumstances.
go for it. So you neuter them another way. You neuter them another way that doesn't cause the reputational car crash that we're seeing right now.
But we already have. But
You
we
think
already
it's, the
have.
car crash is done? It's crashed, and there's nothing you can do about it
Well,
because that's a
I,
cogent position.
huh?
Because that is a cogent position. You might say, "Look, we're screwed. There's nothing we can do now."
But
That is a position.
it is. I'm just arguing the illegitimacy of the whole delegitimization argument. But so I guess so if we could just agree to disagree on this, we've duked this one out before anyway. But I do want to also, I mean, getting back to the actual sort of tech, and we don't have to get into the not technological details. But here's the other thing that bothers me, Andrew, is that going back to like the unconditional recognition, is that so many people are like, but there's still 48 hostages, right? Like until they let the 48 hostages out, where they're not going to get state. But as far as I'm concerned, even if all 48 hostages are released today, the fact that this conversation is even being had in the wake of October 7th, there's like a piece of fuzz flying around, is its own disgrace. Even if the 48 are released, that doesn't absolve Hamas of the utter and complete savagery that they unleashed on Israel. And until that's cleaned up, the two-state solution, which is really a delusion, shouldn't even be on the table. Even if Starmer in all his glory said release the 48 first, it's still completely disgusting and disgraceful.
Especially even if you take Gaza out of it, even if you look at the state of the West Bank, like Fatah is no better than Hamas, if we're brutally honest. They just wish they'd thought of it first, frankly. Um, they wish that Israel wasn't quite so all over the West Bank as it is, so they could do a 7th of October as well. They are anti-Semites. They pay for slay. They pay people to kill Israelis. They are in year 21 of a 4-year term. They're about as democratic as the USSR. It's just a nonsense that these are somehow partners for peace. And the idea that they can, somehow bring it round is ludicrous because the minute you have an election, Hamas get elected. Simple as that, which is another reason why you can't destroy Hamas because they're in the West Bank too. And they take power of Palestine if it becomes a state within a heartbeat. So, this is this is just not a viable situation where the two-state solution is now somehow back on a peaceful pathway because you've acknowledged Palestine. It's fucking nonsense.
Yep.
It's just been done to pacify electorates, with a bit of prompting from Qatari-backed think tanks and media.
So 2 points that I wanna make that I'm very proud I made the first one on September 9th in my Substack, and just yesterday, Rich Goldberg said it, and now everybody's going crazy about it. I said it first, folks, which is to say that if you want to acknowledge or whatever, recognize a Palestinian state, then surely this means the end of UNRWA. Right? Because you can't be refugees in your own state. So I expect that this week, UNRWA will be dismantled, unfunded, taken. I know you're laughing. I don't really expect that. But you can't be a refugee in your own state. But also to the anti colonialists out there, now that Hamas has their state, that's not going to jibe with the right of return that they've been given. Now that they have their own Palestinian state, if they go back into Israel, they become the colonizers. You have to have a state in order to colonize another state, which is why, by the way, Israel was never a colonizer, but never mind that. These are 2 points that have to be reckoned with. And by the way, the very concept of adding in the right of return is literally to destroy the Jewish state, not Israel. I'm not going to say Israel, the Jewish state, because if there's a right of return, it will no longer be a Jewish state. The levels of depravity to this resolution do not end. They're dug like a Hamas tunnel.
And they're scripted. They're scripted by people who know what they're doing at the end of the day. This is all about destroying Israel. This is the long game. We go back to that point we made earlier about these regimes in the Middle East thinking in terms of decades, if not centuries. This is all part of the plan to put that squeeze on. And right now it's working, which is the really scary thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought Netanyahu's comments about autarky and having that strategic independence is so important, because you can't rely on America now. You've
Yep.
lost the Democrat Party. The second they go back into power, Israel's in real trouble. So they've got 3 to 4 years to sort out their supply lines with arms and ammunition. It's desperate times. Desperate times.
It is desperate. And I could tell you, as somebody who's been like a very, very active club member in AIPAC for over 25 years now, to watch how AIPAC went from being the third most influential lobby in America. You know who the first 2 were? You want to guess?
No, go on. No idea.
National Rifles or the gun people, whatever. Whoever.
Oh, I'd have guessed that. Yeah, the NRA. I should
The
have guessed that.
NRA.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
And AARP, the Association of Retired People. But it used to be that AIPAC was number 3, and it was a purely bipartisan issue. Up until very, very recently, Israel was 100% support on both sides of the aisle. It was the last bipartisan issue in Congress until the Squad came and the left went so radically left, and there's no support left on the left. I mean, even, people joke about Chuck Schumer being the showmare, the guardian of the Jews, but he used to be. He used to be, until it became inappropriate for a Democrat to support a Jew, even when you're a Jew. So, the other thing is, it's like, do you watch Saturday Night Live, or have you watched Saturday Night Live?
I know of it. It's not
Okay.
very funny.
It's not funny at all, but it used to be in like the 70s and early 80s, when it was like Eddie Murphy and John Belushi and Chevy Chase and some of the like real actual comedians.
I wasn't born then, so I wouldn't know.
We're only about 5 years apart, aren't we?
I'm in trouble now.
I've known you were born. Okay. Well, last week you accused me of voting for Taft, so I can see that my gray hair is starting to show. But anyway, watching how like Hamas is celebrating in the streets in reaction to all this, and how Starmer and Macron and all these wonderful people like seem to have no concept It is. It's like watching a really, really bad Saturday Night Live skit like unfold before our eyes. It's so surreal. It's nearly impossible to imagine that these so-called leaders can be so stupid and so blind that they don't realize the terrorist reaction to their decisions. And that's why I do believe this is motivated by latent anti-Semitism, because I can't have a show with you ever without saying it all comes back to anti-Semitism. But honestly, it never left. The Elders of Zion, this is the oldest hatred in history. It always resurfaces, and it's always been there. And this is about the one and only Jewish state. There's no other country on earth that is delegitimized. There's no other country on earth that people are trying to uninstate. What would be the word? I don't even know what the word would be. Like to take away statehood from the Jews. There's no other state. Name one. And if you can't, then these are double standards, and double standards are anti-Semitic. Hard stop.
Boom.
Thank you.
Mic drop.
One other. Okay, well, if you're going to drop the mic, I'm going to say one more thing, and that is that ultimately, like, this whole thing is not about reading between the lines. It's reading the actual lines and ignoring them. Here's what the lines say: blah blah blah, Jew hatred. Blah blah blah, Jew hatred. Blah blah blah. L'chaim?
Brilliant. Well, that's a good spot to end on, I think, especially as I'm going horribly down with a cold and I need to go and get a Lemsip and put my feet up and put my hood up and just sit on the sofa and just feel sorry for myself. But thank you for staying with us. Thank you for watching. We do this every Monday. Shana and I go at it, and we always laugh at each other and have a good time. So polite debate is I think underrated, and more of it is needed. But please do like and subscribe, and drop us a comment. Let us know what you think, and maybe we can carry on the discussion there. But it's been a real pleasure as ever, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
As ever. L'chaim. See you next week. Shana Tova.
Bye bye.